Hello guys, Omni here. It's finally time to dive back into Supergirl. Now this is back from its little break, and we're going to get the conclusion to the two-parter that we had kicked off with Back from the Future. So if you haven't seen last night's episode, be sure to tune out and come back once you have, because we're going to be diving into some spoilers. So as we saw at the end of last episode, Toyman's consciousness somehow lived on, or he infected the laptop that was brought into the evidence room with some kind of virus. We weren't too sure on what it was yet, but it turns out that he had gotten some Obsidian tech from Lex that allowed him to upload his consciousness using some old code, as we learned from Winn, that originated from Winn's father, Earth Prime's Winn's father, the original Toyman. And he was able to makeshift that and combine it with the Obsidian tech to upload perfectly his consciousness onto the machine and essentially become immortal in that way. And he started infecting from that laptop all of the DEO systems, even taking over the security cameras, their security turrets, which he turns on them for a moment. We get this cool little scene of, it goes by really quick, but a cool scene of these laser turrets coming out of the ceiling and just started taking pot shots pretty much at the entire staff. And Supergirl is super speeding around, kind of doing this Wonder Woman from the beginning of Justice League thing, blocking all the lasers from all the crew members and whatnot. It's pretty cool. As they all kind of fight that off for a little bit, Brainy manages to actually lock out Toyman from the security systems, at least temporarily, and they're trying to figure out a way to get him out. Now he knows he's starting to spread, and they put up a barrier, a firewall of sorts, to keep him from getting his influence out into the public internet, kind of containing it to the DEO network. So they try to figure out how they can stop him. Winn pretty much says that he should be able to recreate the code since he knows it, he was familiar with it. And turns out later in the episode, he was actually one that created it, and his father actually stole it from him and tried to repurpose it into becoming immortal and living forever and kind of infecting this world and this global spread. Kind of further diving into the issues he has with his father, the things his father did compared to the things he tried to do himself. Which is there's a nice little arc in this with Winn specifically. As they try to figure this all out, you know, Alex even has implanted her own probe into the DEO system, which she's been using to try to spy on Lex. And she does uncover that Brainy's been snooping around in their stuff too, and he had gone in there and deleted that from her folder, and she realizes this and confronts him about it. He slyly says he did it to protect her because he knows Lex is watching all their every moves, and he doesn't want her becoming a target. Pretty much covering himself up too, even though he's the one kind of behind the shadows manipulating a lot of this stuff as well, in their own kind of way. And again, our Winn knows this and even consults him on this whole situation. Does he know anything about this? And when we learn that, you know, Brainy talks to Lex, that Lex had actually planned on this happening with Toyman because he wanted to bait Toyman into having access to this code, having able to merge it so that he could steal the code for himself and learn to become immortal as well, because he feels like the only edge he doesn't have up on Leviathan is immortality. So he pretty much manipulated Brainy, Winn, Kara, everybody, so that this alternate timeline doppelganger Toyman would perfect this code and in turn hand the code to Lex unknowingly. And it plays out in that way. And, you know, it just shows that Lex just kind of has his hand in everything. And it comes down to Leviathan. Once again, we see him. There's this little subplot in the back of this episode about, you know, him tracking down Gemma from before, even though they don't remember the past timeline. He does, so he knows that they are connected with Leviathan. And there's this issue between Obsidian and LexCorp with Andrea's technology, where she's trying to develop people to be able to live virtually. And somehow they're able to transmit nutrients into your body through the lenses you put in your eyes. Whatever, that's some science fiction bullshit right there, but whatever, I'll give it a pass. They're not quite making the headway they would like, and they're trying, Lex puts it out there, and even Lena approaches them to try to partner up, but Andrea's feelings get in between it, and she decides to not merge the companies or partner up with LexCorp in order to perfect her technology, even though they should be able to actually do that if they partnered up. Kind of not wanting to give in to that strained connection that they have. Lex, though, works some strings behind the scenes, knowing that Gemma is one of the supporters of Obsidian, the stockholders, whatever you call it, and goes and meets with her. He knows exactly what she's into and is able to get her to join up and work with it. And she puts pressure on Andrea and mends that wound. So they're working together. There's this little scene at the end, though, where she's meeting with the elder of Leviathan, and she says this little line with, the Luthers are now where we want them. So I wonder if they know a little bit more than what they're letting on, or if they think they do. This might be a little more for us. More of Brainy struggling through all of this stuff, especially with the duality of the role that he's playing. And it all comes down to Wynn and Kara going down to the server rooms to try to locate the server. And then none of this makes any sense. This isn't how servers work. This is how viruses work. Anyway, they go down to try to find the server in which he's rooted in, that Toyman has latched his consciousness onto. And knowing that the code is in there that originated from himself, and his father had tweaked with it and messed with it and kind of created the prototype, this Toyman had kind of built off of that. Wynn knows that his father's consciousness is probably in there somewhere as well, and he's just like adamant about deleting them both, forgetting them both forever, because he resents Toyman, the name, his father, all of it. And, he just wants it erased forever. And he ends up, they get to the server, but by that point, Toyman had grown far enough that he couldn't really just hack into it. So he has to use this thing from the future to send himself into the server, as we would have to, where he finds his father, who's locked up there. Toyman had locked his consciousness up, and, he's getting overpowered. This Toyman is overpowering Wynn's losing, and this cyber field, and he has to accept his father's help, finally coming to terms with his father giving him recognition, acknowledging that they are not the same, that he's really the best version of him and all this kind of stuff. And, he ends up unlocking it, and he hobbles out. It's really awkward how this old dude just kind of like, and tackles Toyman down to the ground, allowing Wynn to shut down the system, deleting them both. Outside, before all that's happening, the infection gets so far as to infect all of these Lexosuits that have been stored at the DEO, which Alex didn't know about, and they start attacking people. And these are the most feeble Lexosuits that we've seen so far. Lex's was by far more powerful than these things. These things fall apart like nothing. They're barely a threat, and they're basically not even trying to kill anybody. They're just trying to get out of the building so that they can, again, spread their infection. But they get shut down when Wynn deletes everything. He has this moment where that conversation with his father allowed him to kind of reconcile with all the pain of his past and all of that. We also learned that currently his call sign for the Legionnaires right now is Computer Lad. But after this whole situation, before he parts ways at the end of the episode, he goes back to his ship. He tells him that he's decided that he will take on the moniker of Toyman. Make it a force for good, that he's accepted all of that pain and that baggage that came with it, and it's time that he accepts it and morphs it into something good. And I like that. Another thing that happens at the end of this episode is Kara breaks it off with William as that starts to kind of get out of its way. And right before the episode ends, we get a knock at Kara's apartment door, and it's Thomas Lennon, Reno 911, among other things, saying, "Well, this looks like a job for Mr. Mixelpidelic." So we got a new actor playing the fifth dimension imp here, so who knows where that's going to go. It always bodes for some interesting, fun, strange episodes, so I'm really curious to see what happens next week. And still, this Leviathan plot has no bearing or interest in me for me so far. I really like Toyman and that whole dynamic. I like seeing Wynn back in this, and that how he's playing up, how he's grown, how he's evolved, getting to see the kind of the character arc that he's had over the years kind of get its own little conclusion in this episode. Brainy and Lex and their dynamic right now is still the most interesting part of the season to me. But Andrea, Lena, Obsidian, all that, I could honestly, I care less. I could care less about it. They haven't really established Leviathan enough for it to really matter for me. So I don't know. They got to ramp it up here in these this last half of the season to really kind of get things going for right now. Because right now it's just kind of slugging its way through, while the core thing keeping me going and keeping me attached, keeping me excited, is seeing where this Brainy stuff goes, because his plot, his story arc right now is the most interesting to me. And that dynamic with Lex, I think that's the most compelling segments of these episodes after Crisis. Kind of shifting that whole dynamic with Lex being in the know, being in control of pretty much everything that's going on right now, being a good guy in the public eye, Brainy having to turn double agent, working with Lex against the team, but also trying to keep them safe. One thing I forgot to mention in this too, Alex quits the DEO because she just can't stomach, Lex's involvement and his fingers and hands and everything at this point. So she's going to be helping John. I don't know. I like the episode overall, but again, this was just a two-parter. It contained to these two episodes. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. But still, this Leviathan arc, Obsidian, Lena's whole storyline, I can't. Well, I'm not fully on board for it. So they're still trying to win me over for it. And I'm still going to be sticking around because I am committed to these shows. So we'll see how it all goes out from here. So what did you guys think of this episode? What do you hope for next episode with Mr. Mixel-Pitalik and how that's going to play out? How do you like the new casting for him as well? What do you thought of the storyline about Win, about Toyman? How do you feel about the season, Leviathan, all that stuff? Let's carry on that conversation after the video. If you like the video, support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and I will catch you guys in the next episode of Supergirl. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.